Spurs host the Blazers tonight. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens Five San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, it's game day. Your Spurs are back in action tonight, hosting the Blazers. We're going to be looking at tonight's game, kind of give you a quick preview, what to look out for, keys to the game, for the Spurs to get a W, what to avoid, the routine here. And we're going to ask, what have the Spurs been doing differently to rattle off 3 straight games? Yeah, it wasn't too long ago they were losing 11 in a row. Now they won 3 in a row. So what gives? We're going to be talking about that and a lot more on this episode of Locked On Spurs. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Going to bring in our guest. He's my colleague over at Kens 5 San Antonio, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who understands the pain of what it's like living in New York City and having to move from apartment to apartment. We were just having a discussion about that before we hit the record button, everybody. He is Casey Viera. Follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. Casey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. Has it been a minute? Why does it feel like it's been a minute?
Because it has been a little bit of a minute.
It has?
It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I think I did. I switched out the Kens representation for the week with Tom Petrini. He came on last week. I think that's why.
Got it.
Yeah, and it's not because lack of trying. I had been trying to coordinate with Tom, but we just kept on missing each other. So I was sitting there thinking, like, I think I'm going to give Casey a break. He can sit back and relax and hold the fort down.
I think the Spurs losing streak was only at like 5 or 6, maybe the last time I was on.
Oh, so what do you say? You might jinx it now. We're going back to that area, to the losing streak now tonight.
Perhaps.
Well, let's go to dive into it. Let's knock out this preview real fast. Spurs-Blazers tonight, Casey. Spurs on the 3-game winning streak. I guess, without sounding like a broken record, they got to just keep on being competitive. And I know we're going to talk about this in a while, but it looks like they tend to be a little more competitive nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's a product of a few things. I mean, I don't want to say they weren't competitive in a lot of the games during that losing streak, because a lot of the games during that losing streak, they were up at halftime, and sometimes up by double digits at halftime. But maybe more so a sentiment of things are kind of falling in place a little bit, kind of learning from your mistakes a little bit, if you will. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it's getting healthy, because it's just been a turnstile of guys who are in there. And even now, at the time of this conversation, they're still not entirely healthy.
Yeah.
And I think it was a product of getting some winnable games on that calendar, relatively speaking. I mean, the Rockets are going through their own rebuild. Miami's been inconsistent. And Cleveland can't win outside of their building.
Yeah.
So you combine those 3 things, plus having Pop back around and healthy in his own right as well. Those are only positives that you're going to have, and as a result, over the past couple of days, it's definitely been that.
Spurs come into tonight's game 9-18. The Blazers are 15-12. As mentioned, the Spurs on a 3-game winning streak, and they are coming off a narrow win at home versus the Cavs, 112-111. Everybody prematurely grayed and got older. See that, and to see that end of the Cavs game, I really thought this was OKC all over again. Remember that debacle where they were up by a billion points? They blew it. That was my first thought. Oh my God! I go, here we go again. Yep. But I look at tonight's game, and right off the bat, I want to say, this is not a Cavs team that can't win. This is not a Rockets team that's rebuilding. This is a very potent Blazers team. They won 4 of their last 5 games heading into tonight's contest. When they're up. They're 5-0 on the road when they're leading at halftime. And obviously it starts with Dame Lillard, Casey.
Not even as much that, though, because he's been, in and out of the lineup due to injury. I think the big story for them is a couple guys. I mean, Anthony Simon's the big one.
Oh, yeah.
saw it a little bit last year with Dame missing a majority of the season, and he became the guy with the ball in his hands, and it's carried over tremendously here. A couple of weeks ago, he had 45. I think it was in Utah in the year. He's scoring over 20 a game. He's been a revelation, so to speak. He and Jeremy Grant as well. Jeremy Grant, a guy who I don't want to say, I don't want to sound too condescending and say he's essentially a journeyman, because he's a few steps above that. But this is a guy for a while, despite people having interest, couldn't find a real concrete home, if you will, and getting moved last year from Detroit, coming to Portland. People were feeling good about it then, and understandably so. People are feeling good about it now. And I think in another sense, I think a lot of those skeptics of him never thought they would see a guy who is putting up 20 points a game in his own right, putting up on like 48% shooting or something like that.
It's ridiculous.
So things are falling in place with the Trailblazers, and they got off to a great start. Hit a little bit of a rut in the middle, and now they're getting healthy, getting Dame back. He had 11 threes the other night, par for the course. It's a good Trailblazers team coming in.
Yeah, really is. The Blazers have 3 players scoring an over 20 points per game. Grant, he's averaging about 23 points per game. You got Simons. He's averaging about 24 points a game. And, of course, Dame Dollar, 28 points per game. So a potent trio for them out in Portland coming in tonight. But we got to watch out for Drew Eubanks, the Drew Eubanks reunion game.
That is true. Hey, he's been playing well.
He has been. That ruggedness, toughness. He has that rugged toughness, nastiness that I think Pop wishes this team has. You remember Popovich recently said that he wishes this team had a little bit more nasty in them. Eubanks definitely plays that way. And by the way, for those who are interested in how he's doing out in Portland, not too shabby. He's getting about 18 minutes per game, averaging 6 points, 4 rebounds. So not bad for him. But, I look at that size that Portland presents with the Grant and Nurkic. I thought it would be a problem against the Cavs. It really wasn't. The Spurs were toe-to-toe with them in the Battle of the Paint. They actually out-rebounded the Cavs. But Grant and Nurkic are just a different beast. And as of this recording, we don't know if Pirtle's back. But regardless, we're going to go with the assumption that he's not. Again, Bassie and Collins, they got to step up again tonight, Casey.
Yeah, and 2 guys, like you said, that you mentioned, Nurkic as well. He's a load. It would have been ideal to have Pirtle back for him. But just kind of goes back on the idea. It's a good Trailblazers team. It's got a relatively deep Trailblazers team that's coming in. They're back from last year, falling off its head with all the injuries going on. Spurs got a little bit of a task if they want to stretch that streak to 4 this evening.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how the Spurs do tonight. Who you got? Blazers or Spurs?
I think we halt things at 3.
Yeah,
I think the streak halts at 3 tonight. Yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah, the Blazers are a different beast than the Cavs and the Rockets. Were it should be for a good game as long as they're competitive. We've seen that in the last 3 games. I mean that'll be fun to watch. But yeah, hopefully the Spurs will make Casey and I look like we were completely wrong tonight, and they'll get that 4th straight win. When we get back, I'm going to ask Casey, well, why in the world are the Spurs winning? Like, what gives? They were just losing 11. Now they're on 3 straight W's. We're going to be talking about that and more. Thank God. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for that family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for that special event, birthday, or holiday. Find an affordable economy car if you're on a budget and you just need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits into your everyday life. They have it all over at Turo. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by a liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions apply. So forget boring rental cars. Find your new drive over at Turo.com. And we're back with Casey Viera right here on Locked On Spurs. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. Second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. So, Casey, I thought Spurs was be tanking, but as of this recording, they're winning 3 straight. No longer the bottom feeder in the West. That belongs to Houston now. Not to say the Spurs are any that better. They're just 1 win more than Houston. But nevertheless, they're winning. So what gives? How did this team go from 11 straight L's to 3 straight W's now?
I think we hit on it briefly before, getting healthier. I think law of average is another thing that just kind of happened. Right place, right time. Keldon Johnson's not going to shoot miserably forever. He's going to figure it out at a certain point. I think law of averages thinking it a little bit. And I think you get to certain points in the season and you just start to get it a little bit more. I think you kind of learned at some point things are going to click to a degree, and some nights it's going to work for you, and some nights you're going to pick teams off that are a whole lot better than you, catch them off guard, and it's going to be advantageous for you, especially for the ones that have been underachieving. A team like Miami has not been particularly good this year, have been largely considered underachieving. Cleveland, at least away from their gym, haven't exactly been world beaters. Home, they've been great, but away from their building, they haven't been ideal. And the Rockets are in their own, trying to figure out their own thing going on right there. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it goes back to the fact that some of those shots for the likes of Keldon Johnson, like I was saying, beyond Keldon, they're starting to fall a little bit.
Right.
Devin Vassell, he's back and healthy, and he's looked pretty good during this stretch at that. We saw him in the Miami game. He was fantastic. So that helps. That helps as well. So I think that's part of it. It's part of a 82 game season. What we're seeing right now, the cliche highs and lows of a season. Season's a marathon. All those things like that. Will it probably level out and the losses keep coming again? Yeah, probably. Probably. This win streak, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends tonight and then it's followed by 5 straight defeats. But that's part of it. That's part of it. We're just lucky to see the past three nights, or 3 times out, I should say. The Spurs team has played pretty well.
Yeah, they have, and they're doing those little things, playing with more competitiveness, or as Pop likes to say, more grunt. And we saw in that losing streak, them just fold so fast. They get popped in the mouth early in the game during that 11 L streak there, Casey, and they were like dead. They were like dead on the water. Like they couldn't recover from that. Now you're seeing them just play with a little bit more competitive spirit. And the numbers prove that, in these last 3 wins, in, I believe, in 2 of the 3 wins, they're out-rebounding their opponent. They're out-rebounding their opponent on the offensive boards. So, yay, hustle. They're getting those second-chance opportunities. And as you mentioned, the shots are falling. Yeah, check this out, Casey. 3 straight wins. Guess what happens? In these 3 straight wins, they're actually connecting on more field goals made in these 3 straight wins. So their shots are falling down. What do you know? There you go. Shots are falling. They're getting rebounds. They're getting second chance opportunities. And yeah, this is going to happen. But you mentioned Devin Vassell, and I want to bring this up to you. Is he looks like he may be having a new role with the team as a 6th man or coming off that bench. In the last few games, he's been not in the starting lineup. Good move or bad move?
I don't think it's going to be a long-term move. I think it's just a matter of health. And Papa's, to an extent, kind of applied it with a minute thing. I'm not getting overly wrapped up in that, because I think anybody who watches this team every night knows that he is one of the 2 best players on the team. So whether it's because of injury or wherever he is in the rotation as a result, I don't think it's going to get large. People will largely look at it as anything more than injury or rotational thing at the time. At least me personally, I'm not getting overly caught up on that part of it. I mean, he's still getting the minutes, still getting the touches when he plays. I think it's just a matter of him staying healthy. And I know there's probably a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge when it comes to these guys getting healthy in this rebuilding season. Instead of making sure we're 100%, it's probably making sure we're 125%, but that's a different story. I would not be concerned about him coming off the bench. I would not, because I don't think it's a long-term thing.
Yeah, it could be just minute management right there for this for that young player there. You know, you're looking at the last 3 games. You know, defensively, that's where they're getting it done. You know, for today's standards, holding a team to 111 points is pretty good. 109 points for the Houston Rockets and a win for the Spurs. So the Spurs, you know, against Cleveland, holding them to 111, Miami 111, Rockets 109. Before that, they were allowing just like walk to the rim and score, or we'll give you wide open shots. They had 103 points by Suns in a loss. You had 143 by the Lakers, 129 by the Pelicans. Now, granted, that's different class of competition, but nevertheless, that's a good sign to see the Spurs are clamping down on a defense. But, you know, I think another big thing, come back, you mentioned health, and one player that is back is Josh Richardson. And, you know, he was being jokey after the win versus the Cavs, saying that the reason why the Spurs are winning is because he's back. You know, well, okay, maybe he had kidding, but that's a big factor, because that's about a 15, 20-point guy right there who can give you some defense as well. And not to mention Romeo Langford has been quietly kind of overlooked in this last 3 games. He's been really showing that he can play defense and offense, Casey.
He's playing himself into a long-term job. That's what he's doing. I think a lot of people viewed him as just the money match throw-in in the Derek White deal last year, to the point that some people even wondered if he would be on the team at the start of the season. That was not a guarantee in itself that he was even going to be on the team in the start of the season. He's playing himself into a long-term job, and somebody on the TV broadcast the other day, may have been Sean Elliott, I'm not sure, but it was on the TV broadcast. They said this is a lot of the trajectory it feels like Danny Green was on. And Danny Green came by way of Cleveland as essentially, right? It was by way he was Cleveland. Yep. There was no other stop in between. It was Cleveland, right?
Yep.
And he was largely inconsequential, just found himself on the bench not doing anything. And here we are, however many 20 years later, well, not 20, like 15 years later, talking about him as one of the great Spurs rotational guys of all time. Now, we're quite a ways from putting a label on Romeo Langford as one of the greatest rotational guys in this organization's history, but general principle being that he kind of found his place a little bit, or has found a chance to find his place. I think that speaks to it, because the opportunity is there. He's taken advantage of it, and he's played well, and they've spoken to that. And I think that's part of the reason. Yeah. I mean, they've had the injuries. He's taken advantage of his minutes that he did not expect regularly to be in the starting lineup, and it's worked out well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Langford. We mentioned Richardson. Of course, the obvious suspects like Vassell and Keldon. But beyond that, you had Zach Collins providing near double-doubles, double-figure rebounding, and, perhaps like low scoring, but still enough, to provide an impact on this team. You've just seen contributions from across the board, from Langford to Richardson, now that he's back, to Collins, to Bassey, who's been impressing me. Remember that those when the fan base, you, me, everybody was all like, the Spurs need a bouncy big. They need that bouncy big. Well, he could be it. I mean, he's been really, really good. So you're seeing everything come around. And I think the big thing is health, which leads me to a big question I'm going to ask Casey when we get back from the break. Is it just simply that? Is this team could this team be better than expected or projected if at full strength? But before Casey answers that question, I want to talk to you about betonline.net. That is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, college football, the bowl season, the World Cup. They got it all over at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those as well over at BetOnline. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. At least, for me, for everybody else, when I need a quick check on how the Spurs win totals are coming along as the season goes on, I'll go to betonline.net. How's Pop in the race for the Coach of the Year award? Well, they got those numbers as well over at BetOnline. So you want to head on to the website today. Use your mobile device. Learn more about the action over at BetOnline. Why? Because that's where the game starts. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Casey Viera. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. He also give you some nice living in San Antonio tips, even though he's an East Coast guy. How long you been in San Antonio now?
4 years. 4 years. Yeah.
Do you miss the East Coast?
This time of year, definitely don't miss the weather.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's for sure. But I mean, there's nostalgic elements that I think are impossible not to miss. There's nothing like the holiday season in New York. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been around it for however many years now. There's something about it. There's things you miss. There's things you don't miss. You don't miss the, like you alluded to at the top, the ever so fluid ever so fluid real estate market, if you will. Yeah, you don't miss that. Certainly the weather. Yeah, I mean, there's days you do, there's days you don't. But I love San Antonio.
Oh, of course, yeah. You're holding it down for Kent's on the weekend, the sports desk.
We're trying.
Yeah, y'all doing a World Cup coverage, everything, right? Everything.
Well, we can. World Cups. They.
It's only the World Cup, Casey. That's all. It's just the World Cup. Yeah, it's only the World Cup.
But
happens every 4 years.
Yeah, well, they got their restrictions, so you can't really show anything. And if you show 31 seconds instead of 30, you got the FCC in your inbox. Some of those things are beyond my control. I'm not trying to get fired. And if the station docks 6-figure fines, you'd be surprised. So.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, let's go to wrap up our conversation right about the silver and black and their winning ways. Right before the break, I was thinking about this. I was saying, look, this is a team that it's not because I'm with Spurs colored glasses right now, but you got to wonder, Casey, at full power, 100% health, Vassell, KJ, Pirtle, J. Rich, Zach Collins, Romeo Langford seems to be coming along. Could this Spurs team perhaps go above and beyond their projected win total? Heading into the season, it was projected at about 24, 23, around there. Do you think if they're at full power, they can bust that?
No,
not even at full power, huh?
No, I don't. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they've shown a lot of positive flashes, but don't let positive flashes get in front of the way that there's a lot of things that are holding them back as a result of their youth and their inexperience. And I have a hard time believing that fully entirely healthy. I mean, when you say above and beyond, what's above and beyond for you?
So I think heading into the season, they were, correct me if I'm wrong, about 24, right? Wasn't that, or 23? Am I off?
It was
what I think
23 and a half.
23 and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I could, if full power, full strength, and they're already getting that experience in them, and you can see it a little bit starting to come together. Maybe we haven't talked about Trey Jones, how incredible he's been playing this year. I could see them maybe sniff close to 30. Am I being too generous? About 27, 28?
No, that's reasonable.
That reasonable? Okay.
That's reasonable. I thought you were going to say sneak in as the 10 seed in the playoffs.
Oh, no.
Come on.
I think
come on.
I could see them, sniff that 30 win point around there, maybe hover right below 30, because you got to figure, just the way the season's shaking out, the Lakers, they started off horrendously. So they're trying to climb out of a hole. What else is in the West? Portland, they're a good team, but they're getting adjusted there. It just feels like the West. There's no clear cut favorite. I can't say it's not Denver. Yeah, I can't. Maybe Dallas is the closest. No, Phoenix, maybe.
Phoenix, right now in mid-December, it's kind of looking like New Orleans, Phoenix,
Dallas.
Maybe I wouldn't say Dallas.
You wouldn't say Dallas? Okay.
No, I wouldn't say Dallas. I would say New Orleans, Phoenix. The Warriors haven't been immaculate, but you got to throw them in there.
Yeah.
And then maybe I know the Nuggets and the Grizzlies. They're like 2 and 3, alternating back and forth right now. I guess you probably have to throw the Nuggets and the Grizzlies there too. Either way, you get like 5. We'll call that, all right, 5 teams that probably have a chance to win the conference, I think.
Well, let's look at the top 8 right now. So number 1 are the Pelicans, right? The Pelicans are 18-8.
Yeah.
Grizzlies 18-9. Then you got Denver 16-10, and then the Suns 16-11. The Kings, that's a little surprise there, 14-11. Yeah, 14-11 for the Kings. Blazers, they're sitting at 6th spot right now, 15-12. The Clippers 16-13. And then the Warriors at number 8 at 14-13. Dallas is just with the equal record. I think the Warriors have the tiebreaker on that one. Their Dallas is at 14-13 as well. It's not. I can see the Spurs sneaking a win against some of these teams. When you go down them, yeah.
I think the Jazz are going to level off at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
They really kind of have. I think they'll level off at a certain point. I don't think a team like Minnesota is any good, especially now that Cat's out for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So Lakers will probably sneak their. I'm really operating under the assumption that despite the start, they'll be in one of the 10 teams hanging around this year.
They're currently 11-15 right now, so they're kind of rebounding from a bad start right now.
It seems like they have it figured. I just figured it out very loosely because you don't know with them, but they've been playing better. I just have a hard time seeing them not in the top 10. Point being, though, there's games that can be had. Like if you call it, if you say you got like Jazz, Timberwolves, Thunder, Rockets, those would probably be the teams right now that don't make the playoffs. Something like that.
Yeah.
Could the Spurs, if they were healthy, finish above any of those guys? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. We'll definitely see how the season shakes out as this team gets more chemistry, more familiarity, less injured. Blake Wesley, is imminent in his return, so we'll see how he's going to get back into the swing of things as well. I think Popovich all but said he's probably going to go to Austin for a while, which makes sense to get his legs under him. And then, of course, Pirtle is back. The whole Pirtle thing, Casey, it's making me wonder if they're working the phone lines.
I think it is.
I think that's what it is, because
that's their biggest trade asset. Why would they?
Right?
I honestly think that's what it is.
Right? Okay, I'm not the only one who's thinking that. Okay.
Yeah, that's far and away their best trade asset right now.
I think they showcased him for a while of the season. They shelved him for a little bit, so to prevent any injury, keep his stock high, and let's see who makes the best offer.
I think that's all this is.
I think he has. I think I'd be surprised if he's still a Spur after the trade deadline, because
I would be ready to bet a reasonable. No, I'm not a betting man, but I if I were, I would be betting a reasonable sum of money to say that he's not here.
If you just read the tea leaves, and you have his offseason comments, where he mentioned to Austrian media that he would like to stay in San Antonio, but he understands that the team is in a rebuild, and He doesn't know if he wants to be a part of that, but he would love to stay in San Antonio. So he made it very clear. He also, the Spurs could have extended him or offered him a new contract. That hasn't happened yet. He's in the prime of his career. Maybe he wants to go and chase a playoff spot or a title. Teams are in a rebuild. Yeah. The team is in a rebuild. Even if they whiff on, they're winning the lottery or fall out of the top three, I think that'll be a disaster if they fall out of the top three. But then you just accumulate all these draft picks and try to trade up or something. So
I got an idea.
What's that?
I got an idea.
You
might find interest in this. Call up Brooklyn and say, hey, you guys want Jakob Poeltl? And they say, all right, yeah, cool. We'll listen. What do you want? We need somebody to play defense inside. Mm-hmm. They say, give us Cam Thomas and Patty Mills to match the money.
Okay.
They probably say no because Jakob's a free agent, and there's a good chance he could leave.
Yeah. Well, you think he'll command a nice chunk in the free agent market?
Certainly more than the deal he has right now.
So why not? If you're another team, why not get him on a relative? Well, that's the thing. Yeah, you would have to extend him out. You're getting his contract, right? So,
but you would still get his right to go over the cap to re-sign him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure.
To do that. I mean, Boston. If Robert Williams doesn't get healthy, I think Boston is the team that makes the most logical sense. Now, what they would give up, I think that would have to be a conversation piece because they're pretty set with the rotational guys that you like, and they're not going to break that part up. And then you already got one pick coming up, another pick coming up. Boston, at least on paper, would make a lot of sense if Robert Williams is hurt.
I wouldn't mind having Robert Williams in a Spurs uniform. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's probably a contract. Well, you're not going to get Robert Williams for Jakob Poeltl, so stop right there. But that wouldn't be like a bad contract to kind of work off of because he's not going to get that much. He's not. He's not going to get that much money. Robert Williams signed 4 for $48 last year. And that was probably an underpay. I could see something like that.
Yeah.
I could see something like that.
It is very interesting to see that Poeltl is still out, and yet he's the biggest trade asset the Spurs. And I'm not trying to compare player to players. I'm just comparing the scenarios. Very similar to Thad Young. Remember how Thad Young would get the spot playing time? Then they shelved him for a while, and next thing you know, he's traded to Toronto. It feels like all over again. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about tonight's game? Do the Spurs beat the Blazers for their 4th straight win? Or, it was good while it lasted, 3 games straight. Let us know what you think. Also, why do you think the Spurs are winning of late? Is it simple as everybody's getting healthy and getting on track? Or is there something bigger we did not cover? And you know what? Throw us your best Jakob Poeltl trade scenario. Get on that trade machine. Put it out there. Let us know what you think, what you would want to see the Spurs do in a deal for Jakob. You can let Casey know on Twitter at Casey_Viera. Tell us what's going on at Ken's 5, Casey.
We are almost done with high school football season. We got one more game by the time this airs on Friday. Shout out Bernie, the Greyhounds, playing in the state title, 4A. But after that, I feel like the focus turns primarily to the Spurs. At least locally.
Cowboys too, probably.
Cowboys. Well, I mean, we always got an eye on the Cowboys. Yeah. That's kind of the given as is. But yeah, it seems like now we can finally, and it's perfect because they're winning again. It would have been bad if they were winning these games and we couldn't get over there because we were covering the football. But no, they have just about our full undivided attention now.
All right. See, that's coming soon already there. Once again, let Casey know what you think on Twitter at Casey_Viera. And thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Once again, free and available wherever you get podcasts. And you can subscribe to Locked On Spurs on the Kens 5 Plus app, YouTube page, Odyssey app. The list goes on. And don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today. Make that your second listen of the day. So for Casey Viera, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.